Am I on? We're good. Thank you all for having me here today. For the next 2.5 hours, we'll be talking about marketing. We'll keep it to 41 minutes. How about that? All right, let's make sure we do this right. As it was said, I'm from Golf Space Collective, so we'll talk a little bit about my company at the end here, but we work with kind of all four corners of the golf world, and we help a lot of golf brands with marketing, private clubs, and the public clubs as well. So before we get things kicked off, because we have a very big dynamic of clubs here, we fully understand that when we talk about marketing at the club level, there's private clubs and there's going to be public clubs, and there's different resources and goals of each of them. So one thing that we like to hit on right away is typically when you're at a private club, you have more resources and staff that you can leverage, and usually you're just trying to affect the overall member experience. When you're at a public club, you're probably trying to kind of just create the awareness and exposure for your club, and you very well may have limited resources. So everything we talk to today is not going to be a college lecture. It's going to be like tactical things that all of you in this room can start to leverage as soon as you get home. So these are some of the topics that we'll be covering here today. Super exciting. We're talking about print. I know everyone loves print marketing. It's been around forever. We'll talk social, email, and then overall brand and how those all kind of roll up into one. So getting things kicked off, I'm sure if I asked for hands on how many of you have flyers on your golf shop stands right now, every hand in this room would be up. One of the things that I do want to take some time to talk about and run through is in the day that we live in with emails and social and SMS messaging and all the digital assets that your people who are at your clubs are being exposed to, this does tend to be a really good avenue to get right in front of them when you want and where you want it. Again, you guys all probably leverage this at some level when it comes to demo days, some product promos, clinics, things like that. What I do want to touch on though is how we can make these print materials look better, how you guys can easily do this, and then show you some examples of what they should look like in an ideal world. I have a handful of friends who are all directors of golf. I'm originally from upstate New York, so they're all in the Western New York section. And they used to send me all of their flyers and stuff, and it would come from like SharePoint files I couldn't open that were 15 years old, big white paper, 17 different fonts, and I was like, we gotta clean these things up, guys. Like these are horrendous. So one tool that we recommend, write this down, it's the best $10 a month you'll ever spend, is Canva. If you're not using Canva today, I highly recommend it. They make it very easy for you to get started. There's thousands of templates in there. You just type in what you want, fully laid out. You can drop your brand elements into it. You can print, you can save, you can get it however you need it to, and it will take you 5 minutes to create. Now again, I know 5 minutes in the world of all of us is very long when you have a line of members out your door asking for various things, so I completely get that. But I'm willing to bet that we also have a staff of people who are probably roughly my age or younger, and this is the world that they live in. So if you can have them leverage Canva, you'll take that 5 minutes back and you can go take a quick coffee break, right? One other tool that I'll touch on here too is RepSpark. I'm sure there's many in the room that have that for their point of sale purchasing and for your vendors that you manage there. RepSpark typically, depending on which vendors you're partnering with, has marketing tabs in each of the different vendor breakouts. The vendors will typically load flyers, kind of promo things into there that you can then leverage, and I'll say this too, you can bring those into Canva and put your customization on those as well. I very clearly ranked these in order of easiest and best to use and hardest and probably stick away from. Adobe Suite, unless you went to college for this or want to waste 17 hours of your week, just stay away from this. Or there's someone on your staff who actually does this. It's very, very difficult. It's very hard to kind of get things out quickly especially with the fast-paced turnarounds that we all need in this room. Adobe makes that really hard, and it doesn't play well with a lot of the tools that everyone in this room will typically be using. So I would push you heavily toward Canva. I'll show you guys a couple examples. I won't. We'll talk about a couple examples, and after this presentation's done, Thomas and his team have an email that we'll send out with links that you guys can look at all these samples and kind of see what those look like. But just to recap there, because I want to give you very specific things to go home and start to do, Canva, and leverage it for everything. Again, like you don't have to recreate these documents time and time again. It's going to store them year over year. So again, very easy. Once you make it, you go switch 2023 to 24, 24 to 25. A couple minutes there. And again, we see print marketing, especially in this realm, as being extremely effective to getting messages to your members and guests at clubs that are kind of going to be coming in there. Let's completely switch gears now. We'll go from one end of the spectrum to the other. Social media, right? Like we just heard a couple comments on that, how Southern Texas is doing a great job with that. So one thing that we like to talk about is how do all of you in this room, as being on the front lines, actually leverage social media to your advantage? So when we talk about this with some of our clients, they'll have this laundry list of 100 things. If we want to do this, we want to do this. And I'm like, okay, like let's just do 5 things really, really good, right? Like let's start there and then let's build it on. Again, if you're at a private club and you have resources, awesome. If it's a public club and you don't have resources, or maybe it's switched there too, try to do 3 to 4 things really good and then build out. You don't need to go all in and get crazy. Just stick to those core areas there. So we have a couple best practices, we'll call them, when we start to dabble into the social media world. For social media, this goes across all social channels: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If we want to get crazy, we can talk about TikTok, like anything like that. For any content that we're going to be producing for social, right off the bat, we tell this to our teams that we work with at the PGA Tour, any of our tournament division teams. Don't zoom on your phone when you pinch. Walk with your feet. The minute you start zooming on your phone, every photo will become a little bit pixelated, doesn't really generate as well as you want it to. Let's say we have a new line of clothing. We have swing juice, and they're new in our golf shop. We don't want to like stand at the table there, zoom in, take that picture, walk up, grab it. That will always perform better on social media with things like that. The same for clinics and tournaments, and when you're doing lessons, like walk with your feet and capture that image up close, because that will have the most impact and it will look the best when you push it out across social. All of your messaging, this is a huge topic here. We want it to be extremely authentic. You guys all in this room represent a club that has a brand, that has a voice, that wants to be perceived a certain way. Your social channels should echo that. Also, if your club has a social channels, and maybe you as the PGA professional also have a channel, it should probably mimic that to some level. Sometimes we see that with our clients where the club will have a series of channels, and then the golf professional will have a series of channels too. Make sure that they mimic and kind of tie back and forth. So again, quality shots and messaging, this is how social media thrives. It's content and comments, right? When we talk about the next thing here, it's going to be frequency and authenticity. A couple things that we'll hit here. So ideas that we can target as a group, again, this is that quick list of things that you can start doing on day one, is if maybe there's a series that you guys spin up where we talk about golf tips or a swing analysis, or we're doing a quick, you get sign off from one of your members or guests and you're in like a lesson and we were able to capture that content. When that hits your social channel, me as a golfer, you guys will be pushing this out. I tend to gravitate toward content like that because I want to see like, oh, that's an interesting tip, or I never thought about that. It's creating exposure for your clubs. And again, it seems very simple, but we're just leveraging the content that you and your staff do on a daily basis, and we're just taking that and pushing it out across social now. Golf lessons and clinics, this is a huge one. If you all scroll through Instagram and TikTok, you're going to see this all over the place. You're going to see a lot of the hole by hole shots where you hit some of these influencers that go out there and they record every shot that's hit. You're also going to see, like, there's a gentleman called Jake Hutt. He does a really good job, and he kind of like raps about his golf lessons, but I don't say we all need to get into rapping. But he does a really good job of making it simple and just putting out content that then resonates with the audiences. So it drives them back to the brand. Again, there's things that we can leverage there very easily just to create exposure for you and your clubs that you're at. Featured course highlights. This is a huge one. I recently moved from upstate New York to upstate South Carolina. When I first moved, I didn't know the clubs in the area, so I went on Instagram to go see, like, what do they look like? Where do I want to play? What do I want to do? A lot of the clubs in my area don't leverage this well, so I had to go to their site, dig through 100 pages and find the course tour, the drone flyovers, and go do all of that. But in the day and age that a lot of our members and prospective members and players are in, they're all going to go to social first to look to kind of interact with brands as a whole. You guys are the exact same. So we always talk about, like, leverage those drone footage shots that you guys are getting that are on your site, put those on Instagram, put those on Facebook. You might have to cut those down and edit them slightly, but we can leverage them there very easily to create exposure for the beautiful kind of clubs and courses that we have, right? We want to try to really have people understand what they're getting into. This also, I'll touch on this too, if you're a private club, this is a really good way to create exposure for your club. If you're a private club, I know we all have wait lists of 200 deep, but this is still a great way to show them almost a taste of what the member experience could be, right? Because a lot of times there's a slight barrier to entry where if you're looking to join a club, you go to the site. A lot of our sites, if we're on a couple of the different providers for that, it's a simple landing page with like a login button, maybe a couple pictures, and it's more of a process up front of scheduling an appointment, going in, doing my tour, all of that. But if we could create a little bit more of exposure up front, maybe on social, it's a really good way to kind of build your pipeline of prospective members, and on the public side, drive more play there as well. Last one that we touch on here is showing the member engagement, or if you're on the public side of the house, this is just showing the actual engagement of your club, right? So what are the events that we are putting on? Let's capture some of those. Are there junior clinics happening? Are there women clinics happening? What's happening on that front that we can push that out across social to better promote what all of you are doing in your respective kind of avenues there to drive the game forward. Couple more kind of topics here. Promos and events. So again, if you have special promos going on, tournaments that are open to the public, even if you're on the private side of the house, people still like to see the tournaments that you guys are putting on. Well, I'll show you a couple examples of that here in just a second. Video content, make a quick note of this, will always outperform your photos. If you can prioritize the videos, it's like a 10-to-1 ratio. They'll always do better across all social channels that you put that on. We're not talking crazy videos. You probably have majority of it sitting in a Google Drive folder currently. You can just leverage it on social now. We want to promote our golf shop merch. I'm sure there's none of us in this room that want to sell more stuff, right? So this is a really easy way to kind of grab some photos of your nice tables. Maybe you have your merchandiser that's just gone and done a really nice job on like the newest kind of display there. These are the avenues that we want to push this, again, to create exposure and drive sales for both membership and public play. Your members are going to follow you on social. They're going to see it there. You're going to probably send out some email stuff. Let's drive them to go and then make those purchases just as well on the public side of the house. So if there's special discounts, exclusive offers, let's kind of drill that down there. Player success stories is also huge. Let's say this is more so focused on lessons and such. So if there's a player who's a 15 handicap and maybe they have a couple of their first birdies in a round and they've been going through like a series of lessons, these are really easy ways to kind of just capture the content around there and then leverage that on social. Here's a few examples. So these are some clubs that we actually work with. These are friends of mine. So Monroe Golf Club is up in Rochester, New York. They hold the Monroe Invitational every year. You can see here, this is a full-on private club, and they do a really nice job of just kind of showing off some of their tournament setup, some of their player highlights, just typical club promo stuff there. On the left, the Ben Wilson PGA, that's a close friend of mine who's a director of golf at his club, and this is content that he captures and then promotes on his channels as well as the club. Again, there's that kind of marriage that can happen there where you both kind of benefit from having a nice channel. A few more things here. So again, we have some different promo samples. I grabbed a couple pictures of some sample golf shop photos here. Again, when I first started working with Ben, I was like, stop zooming, I can't see half this picture. Walk with your feet and get me like a good quality one so it works better. Just a few examples here. But this content performs extremely well across all social media. All right, we'll get into the email side of the house, and this is where there's like 17,000 different systems that you guys are probably on, so we'll keep it very topical. So one thing right away, everyone that you guys send emails to probably does the same thing that you guys do with emails. So I always tell clients, think of how you interact with emails, so when you're sending them, your members and your players are also going to interact pretty much the exact same way. I like to call it the recycling bin. If I'm on a big list and I just get hit with very non-segmented things, they just get filed really quickly, right? They get pushed right to the right trash can and we're good to go. So one thing that we help our clients with and that we talk a lot about is sending personalized emails to people that actually want those messages that you're going to be sending. So if it's a full-on open tournament and event that everyone needs, great. If it's a monthly newsletter, awesome. If it's like men's outing on next Thursday, your whole list does not need that. Just probably the males or the primary email on that list needs it. This does a couple things. It helps with your, we'll call it your engagement rates. So people typically look at open rates as being a big success or like a click rate. We want to look at the actual engagement rate of these emails. The people that it's targeting, they're opening it, but then what are they doing past that? Are we getting them to the pages to register for the tournaments? Are we getting them to the clinic signups? Are we getting them to all these things that they will actively partake in, or is it just more of a awareness play, right? Subject lines. Gmail, Yahoo, all the major email providers are all kind of cracking down on this. I'm sure we've all seen it here. You'll have different folders on your Gmail now. One will be like a marketing folder, one's like a sales folder. They're getting really good at sorting out emails now, just automatically. So I always really work with our clients on ensuring that we're not saying words like huge discount or free this or comment like instant action here. Like we don't want to be car dealerships. We're golf clubs, right? So we want to really ensure that all of our subject lines are very clear. One really easy way to do this is most of the email platforms that are out now, they'll have an AI button where if you pop in a couple different things, it will recommend a good subject line that you can hit there. We won't go down the AI rabbit hole today, but we can do that another time. But leverage that to the best of your ability, because this is how you guys stay out of spam filters and really get those emails through. Clear call to actions. If we can, I'll show you a couple examples that are going to be coming up. Don't write 5 paragraphs in the email. Get them to right to the point of what we want them to do, and then let's send them to the registration page, the buttons that they need to click and go on their way. A lot of people, because we have to realize that 70% typically of people that interact with email are looking at it on their mobile phone. So now we're going scroll, 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 and then I'm gone, right? Like I'll go to my next email as it hits. So that's one really thing to pay attention to is we want clear, concise emails that tee up exactly what we're talking about and then drive them to say, here's how you can be a part of this, or do X, do Y, and let's get them off there immediately. All right, a few other things on email best practices. Mobile optimized. Again, as I just touched on, 70% of your people that are going to be opening up emails are going to be on their mobile phones. The other 30% are usually on the desktop. What's interesting about this is they'll primarily open it up and view it on their mobile, Usually what happens is for the younger demographics, they'll take action on their phone. For the older demographic, they'll go to their desktop and do what they got to do there at like a later time. So just one thing to keep in mind is before you send out these emails, make sure they look good on desktop and mobile, or else you kind of lose people there. Consistent branding. We all pride ourselves on our clubs and our brands. Let's make sure that our emails and our comms that are going out all look exactly the same. Clear and relevant design. As I mentioned earlier with some of the print stuff, we don't have to go crazy with these fully done up emails. White backgrounds do really, really well. Simple club logo and then some nice imagery with text and the brand colors. We can keep it really simple. Something like this. So here's a few examples. We do a lot of work with the Texas Golf Association, so I kind of pulled some inspiration from some of their emails that we work on them with. As you can see here, just very clean. There's not a whole lot of clutter on there, just very simple emails that are driving people to what they need to do and how they need to do it. This is exactly, these emails convert extremely well, and on the club side, they get very high engagement rates with members and public players that are interacting there. All right, so let's talk branding. So everything we just kind of covered, print, social, email, it's how you interact or create interactions or represent our club, right? It's how the world perceives us through the digital environment, or if we're talking print, on the print side of the house. So when we talk about brand, what we like to talk about with our clients is it's not just an identity. It's not just who your club is. It's not a product of like, hey, this is our golf club, this is our golf course. It's not simply just that. What brand becomes is it's how people perceive you. So it's how people are going to be looking at you as a club, looking at you as a public facility, looking at you as a private facility or a country club. And it's the opinions that they start to make in their head that they attach to your brand now, right? So I always use the example of Jordans, right? If you think of Jordans and you were to just talk to anyone about it, they're like, oh yeah, it's a shoe. It's 100% correct. It is a shoe, but it's also way more than that. It's the player behind it. It's the prestige that he had, right? It's the success that then makes a lot of people want to buy in and be a part of that, right? So it's way more than just it's a shoe that I wear on my foot. It becomes an identity that a person creates that they want to attach themselves to. It's the exact same thing with all of our facilities here. We have members that want to join at private clubs because you guys are hitting a niche of what they want to identify with. On the public side of the house, they want to play at your facilities for X and Y reasons because you guys are delivering, maybe it's a super fun service or it's a private-like feel. They want to identify with that to have that experience there and then share that with others. So I kind of pulled a few examples here just to kind of prompt how you all in this room think of this. I was pulling some lists of top public private courses in the state here, and then obviously we have our more popular ones. But as you see this list, yes, these are logos, but there's a ton more behind what these logos are. So when you see the Masters logo, yeah, we're all like, we want the merch, we want the hat, I want the shirt, right? Like I want all of that, but it's why, what is making us want that, right? It's the prestige of the tournament. It's the history of that tournament. It's everything that they've built into it. It's the communications. It's Jim Nance, right? It's all of that being built into that creates kind of where this is going. You think of the same with Pinehurst. I played at Butler Pitch and Putt yesterday, which is full spectrum, right? We're talking Masters to the pitch and putt course now. But again, there's an experience, there's a very clear emotion that these have with people, but it's the social media that goes in behind that. It's how they're communicating with these people. It's all the email communications that come out. It's everything that's going behind the scenes to build this up. So when you see that logo or that brand mark, you instantly have a feeling about it now. One other thing that we'll touch on here in just a few minutes is, I think I'll send out the slide after, but there's a couple things that we like to talk about specifically around branding. So when we start to break down the brand, Few things. First is the brand consistency. If you guys, I'm sure there's plenty of people in this room, we want to make sure that we're sticking to our brand guidelines. We shouldn't have 17 different colors of our logo, probably one or two, right? A black version, a white version, a full color version. One thing that we've seen that's been super popular as of late is the alt logo. So you'll have your primary, and then you'll have an alt logo. Technically, it could be a member logo, or we've even seen it being used for merch and different things there. It's a really nice way to kind of branch out your brand and hit a new demographic group. It's also great because you can sell a lot more merch, right? Now everyone needs that new logo. So that's one area there that we really like to talk about, is ensuring the consistency of your brand. Again, the minute we start to hone in on that, that's where all of your brand consistency then feeds your email marketing, it feeds your social media, it feeds all your print. It's like the guide for how you launch everything from there. One other thing that we talk about is looking at your brand voice and who you want to be in the space. So if you were to look at a few different other industries that we can kind of pull on here, let's talk cars for a second. If we look at Mercedes, we know the people like that Mercedes is going to be going after versus Ford versus everyone else. Like, they speak different, their commercials are very different, they're targeting in on a certain group. We want to do the exact same thing for everyone in this room. We want to look at, we always tell our clients, let's look at 4 or 5 of the ideal people that we want playing here from a public side or a private side, right? Who do we want playing here right now, but then who do we also want to attract? Like, and we talk about this a lot in the golf area, is there's a whole population of golfers that are just coming into the game right now through the simulator side of the house, through the Topgolf side of the house. They're all being exposed to it. Everyone in this room, your facilities are logically the next step once they're not shaking over the first tee shot in the simulator, right? Like, they're going to graduate to green grass at that point. So how do we best align who we want to attract then? And that's looking at how we want to be perceived, right? And that, again, that's going to tie back into what are the comments and tones that we're kind of communicating with on social media. Is it more informational just because that's all we want? Or do we want to be like Butler Pitch and Putt, who takes a more edgy, I would say, edgy approach to things and is confident in their brand, right? It's very, very different, but they know who they want to get and they know who they want to bring in the door there. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, beside the brand guidelines and targeting in on your demographic group, is really looking not at a snapshot right now of your facility, but in 5 and 10 years, who are you then? Is it the same? It very well could be, which is perfectly fine. But when we start to make these decisions for our facilities, if we look at it in a snapshot of just today, we run the risk of not being able to evolve down the road and create more kind of hassle and burden as we start to do that. So one thing that we like to work with some of our clients and partners on is, it's like the personality test, right? Like, okay, here's who we are today. In 6 months, is this the same person? In 5 years, is this the same person? And think of your brand as being an actual person, not a large facility or a company or a public facility. Think of it as being a person. How is that person growing? How is that person changing? How is that person talking? And is it the same today? Is it the same tomorrow? Again, perfectly fine if it is, but as we look at this, we don't want to skip over the fact that it could potentially change, and those changes 5 years down the road could be marked out in a roadmap from today to 5 years that logically breaks down the various milestones that we need to get to that end perspective. One other thing that I'll touch on from the club side of the house is we're seeing a really big push into digital golf shops as of late, both from public and private facilities, even like the resort side of the house too. So there's a lot of different vendors that provide this. I just want to kind of flag it that's another really good area as we talk about your brand and what you guys look like as a club in a few different years. Something to really kind of consider is, does that fit into what you're looking to do? Whether it's a membership perk that you can expose people to new various brands and have direct shipping to their home, or does it then create another opportunity to test out some of maybe the alt logos that you guys would want to run, right? Like we have our primary club logo. We've had clubs that are looking at more of a junior friendly logo, which I thought was pretty interesting that they're going to launch on their junior line. We have an alt logo that if your club has tennis facilities, they're looking to do different logos for that. So now you start to think of your facility as in the same tone that corporations do, where you have, let's pick on Coke, right? You have all their brands there, and then you have all their sub-brands to it. We're seeing a lot of facilities now start to really take that same mindset and again, market to the specific people within their clubs from a branding side of the house too. A little bit about Golf Space Collective here. So we are a full service marketing agency. Everyone on our team that we interact with and work with, from our contract workers to our full-time staff, they're all golfers first. So I've been a golfer for a really long time. My handicap hasn't changed too much, so there's obviously some problems there. But everyone that works with our accounts and works with all of our clients, they're all golfers first, and they bring like another skill on, like right on top of that. So we have a full social media team, a full marketing team, a full email team, and we work with our clients to create these strategies and rollouts that best fit their needs. One other thing to touch on here is we do a lot of work, and I want to thank Thomas and team for having us out today. So we do a lot of work with the Texas Golf Association, with the Southern Texas PGA section. And I have half my team that's coming back from Pebble Beach right now because they all got blown out of there pretty much. So we do a lot of work on the tournament side of the house, private and public side of the house, all in this space. Really just helping stand up processes, systems, and workflows that work for clubs at their level to move them forward and have them reap the benefits of that. And again, there's different scale, there's different rollouts, there's different strategies, which we fully get. But it's doing what best fits the needs of each individual club and facility in this room. We have a few minutes left. Here's a couple more of those slides. We touched on this earlier. So I'll pause real quick. We got about a couple minutes left. I ran through that much faster than the 2.5 hours I had committed to. Questions, comments, feedbacks that I can field from anyone in the room here? Wonderful.
So at what point do you carve a niche when you're trying to do one thing and you can attract all 3 or 4 different things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what you would want to do is look at all of the inbound traffic that you have from those 3 to 4 areas, right? And there's typically going to be a common denominator that resonates with each of those areas. So what we would typically look at is it age? Is it like what kind of factors are going to be laid over there, and we form a group out of them. So you're going to take your 3 to 4, look at the different layovers there, create a group out of that. Then you'll look at your next group and do the same. So we're always looking to refine the groupings based on who's coming to you. There's some facilities that we've worked with where they want more of a corporate membership style feel because they don't do a lot there, versus, hey, we're good on like the individual or like the social side of the house, but we want to bring in more corporate. So we're like, okay, like those channels obviously mean that we need to speak with people on the LinkedIn front versus the Instagram and Facebook front now. So it's looking at, are there current members that you have that represent that corporate kind of individual area there? What are their similarities, and how do we now target them and engage with them on a LinkedIn front to think differently about a membership at our club? So we're always looking to kind of look for the similar threads that we can pull to weave people together and identify what those groups are. Yep. Yes, sir.
Can you speak a little further about the benefits of an alternative logo, as you were talking about, maybe a members only logo?
Yep.
I think it's kind of a new concept.
Yeah, it's definitely picking up more steam, but to your point, it is very new. So we have clubs that we work with and that we know of where the primary logo may be a little bit intense, I'll say, right? Like there's a lot going on. And we're working on a project right now with a few properties out in Southern California. And their board came to us and we're like, we want a new logo. And I was like, that's awesome, but like, you're changing the sign up front. You're changing all your letterheads. Like, there's a million things that get changed. Nothing wrong with your logo. They just want a new one. So we started talking with their marketing and kind of like brand board about like, hey, like, have we ever thought of a extension of this logo in the form of an alt logo, where now you don't have to go through and change letterheads, the signage up front, and rip it off of everywhere. We leverage it in specific areas now, which takes the burden off of, it's a lot of money to fully redo a brand at a club, right? I mean, there's a lot of different assets that I'm not even talking about that come into that. Then what the alt logo allows you to do is also test it in small batch form. So you can stand up that logo usually pretty quickly once the board kind of gets through the approval process on that, or however your club's set up in that asset. But yeah, the alt logo allows you to now do limited merch runs. You can test it on certain areas and see what traction it's kind of picking up there, and then begin to formulate a plan on rolling that out. And that's what the club that I was just speaking about, they wanted to make it their primary. But I was like, hey, let's hit the brakes, let's test it, let's get member or the public buy-in on this before we just jump right into it. And then, speaking to the 5-year plan there, it's to slowly incorporate that more and more into all kind of areas of their facility there. Yep. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. I don't want to hold you for lunch, so I'll turn things back over to Thomas and team.